Call the June 9th planning commission meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. Your motion? Hello. Eric, second, anyone? Clayton? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. And we'll move right into Matthew's presentation. We'll do the meeting minutes after that, afterwards.
Yeah, I'm still, sorry, I'm just still trying to get
Okay.
logged in.
You got Beaver?
Hasn't shown up yet. Which usually it takes a minute or two, but should happen.
Thank you, Clayton, for getting that. Oh, the special.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No problem at all. My first time doing it, so if it looks bad, let me know, I can make it better.
It looks great.
Right.
Buzz, do you happen to have the Zoom information pulled up over there? Cause I can walk over it.
Oh. It's right there, top.
Let's see, sending it to.
Such the whole meeting, let me just copy the link and it'll go faster. This is right.
No. So it's a ER.
Oh, whatever your emails. You know,
So NVA CH.
oops. I'm sorry, Dan.
NVA CH. Ever.
And I confused us.
She said she was finding herself. I mean, how that appeared on the minutes. We don't know.
Let's see.
I don't know the confirmation each and gets.
Yeah, but I'm going to give myself some
Okay.
and get back into the person. Let me tell you, what I see is that. Yeah, that's what I see. Yeah. I mean, especially if you're going on with the larger trails where it's just everything's so.
That's the Peter now is looking to get in.
So what?
Okay.
Just.
There we go.
You right with them? Get one in the waiting room, I guess.
Maybe two.
Three.
All right, Peter, Kathy, can you hear us?
Two? Kathy and Pete, everybody.
And Buzz, I just.
Yep, I give it to you.
And. All right. Now I can get started.
All right.
Thanks for your patience.
Okay, no problem, thank you.
So thank you for having me back to Grafton this evening. So I'm here to talk about our regional plan update process. I can also provide some updated information just about Act 181. As many of you might know, there were some reforms to Act 181 that passed the legislature during this past session. So I can provide an update on that as well. But I did want to start out just kind of setting the table in terms of who we are, the Wyndham Regional Commission, and the role of our regional plan. As we've been meeting with towns over the last 6 months or so to talk about Act 181, I have realized that not every town is very familiar with our regional plan. So just wanted to take a step back and talking just more broadly about our regional plan before talking about the changes related to Act 181. So we are one of 11 regional planning commissions in the state of Vermont. We're located in the southeast corner. We serve 27 towns, including Grafton. Most of our towns are in Wyndham County, but we have a few towns in Bennington and Windsor counties as well. So this is our work, but it's also the work of all regional planning commissions in the state. So we're a state entity. We're created under statute. We assist towns to provide effective local governance. And we also work collaboratively with towns in our region to address regional issues. We're also a technical resource for our communities in all areas of planning. So land use planning, transportation, natural resources. We help out with grant management if a town receives a grant from the state, especially from VTrans. We can provide assistance if the town would like us to, just in managing that grant and hiring contractors and doing reimbursement requests from the state. And then we also are here as a resource for towns to help make sure they're meeting state and federal requirements. So broadly, that's the work that we do. Regional planning commissions have been around for almost 60 years now. So we've operated in the region for many decades. Just in terms of the program area, so these are the main focus areas of our organization. So beach transportation planning, we have a contract with VTrans to do transportation planning with the communities in our region. So we do things like doing culvert inventories with towns, assessing their culverts, the conditions of culverts, if culverts need to be upgraded. We help towns with meeting the new state stormwater management requirements for town roads. That's been a big part of our work over the last several years. But we have a transportation planner on staff that does that work and does a lot of work with helping towns identify grant opportunities and apply for grants through VTrans. Town planning and zoning, this is the program area I mostly work on. So this is providing technical assistance to towns with doing their town plan updates and what needs to be included in their town plans and kind of best practices for town planning, and also zoning bylaw work for towns that have zoning, helping them with required zoning bylaw updates. We also have a natural resources planner. That's Margot at our office for folks that know Margot. A lot of her work is focused on water quality. So she does a lot of work with the state on water quality issues. We do emergency planning with communities in our region as well. We help towns with local hazard mitigation plans. Right now, we're doing a lot of work with updating flood hazard bylaws, just to meet more current cleaning standards. We have a brownfields program too, or we manage funding from the EPA to help communities and property owners apply for grants to clean up contaminated sites. And then we also do mapping and GIS service for our town. So putting together just transportation maps for the road networks, updating zoning maps, doing the maps for town plans, and so that's just broadly, those are the main program areas at Wyndham Regional Commission. But regional planning commissions are also required to have a regional plan. So towns in Vermont are not required to have a town plan. Most towns have a town plan. Grafton has a town plan in place. And our regional plan was last updated and adopted by our commissions in July of last year. So regional plans are required to address the same topic areas that are addressed in a local town plan. So our regional plan addresses land use, transportation, natural resources, community facilities and utilities, economic development, all the same topics that are in a town plan. Regional planning commissions, though, we're looking at these issues at the region-wide level. So for a municipality, you're focused on, what are the issues and concerns in Grafton and how are we going to respond to that in our town plan. But we're looking at these issues broadly and also how these issues affect the region as a whole and multiple towns because many of the issues Grafton is dealing with, other towns are also dealing with in our region. So I like to think of our regional plan also as a resource for towns that are going through a planning process to see what we have identified as broader issues that you as a community, might be learning about and not aware of. I think it's also helpful to see that the issues that Grafton is dealing with are not, you're not alone, I guess, in dealing with those. So that's a main role of our regional plan. It also provides policy guidance on growth and development in the region. And we use it to help inform our work program. So our regional plan includes an implementation section. So we have action steps, just like your town plan has steps the town wants to take to help implement your goals and priorities. So we do that as well within our plan. But it's important to note our plan, it's only advisory. So we don't have any permitting or regulatory authority where for a community or a municipality, their town plan is the basis for their zoning bylaws and land use regulations. If you've adopted those, it's also a basis if you have a capital improvement plan. That's going to be based off of your town plan, but regional planning commissions, we don't have land use regulatory authority, so it's not informing any sort of region-wide zoning. We also don't manage any infrastructure facilities, so it's not informing a regional capital improvement plan. So it is an advisory document versus a regulatory document. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about the role of our regional plan in the Act 250 process. So Act 250 is the state land use permitting process. It's also been around for about 50 to 60 years or so, about 50 years now. And regional planning commissions, like towns, like Grafton, we have what's called standing in Act 250 permit applications. So we receive notice about any Act 250 project in the region, regardless of the size of that project. And then the regional plan sets standards for our commission on whether or not we're going to evaluate that project as being one that has substantial regional impact. And then that determines how we engage in an Act 250 application. So if it's a project that's substantial regional impact, we're gonna provide formal comments on that project and how it relates to the policies within our plan. If we comment on a project, again, our plan is not regulatory, so we are just providing comments that go to the state in their review process, and they can consider those comments. Similar to how a town can engage in that process and provide comments based on policies in their town plan. For towns that have zoning, and I know Grafton doesn't have zoning, those local land use regulations and zoning bylaws, that's really what's gonna have the greatest impact on what can and can't be built within a community. So for a town that doesn't have zoning, Grafton can use its town plan as a basis for commenting on Act 250 proposal or projects that require an Act 250 permit within Grafton. Most Act 250 applications are just administrative permits through the state. And when the regional commission does not weigh in on those administrative permits, again, we're looking for projects that have more of a regional impact because we are a regional planning commission. So our concern is for the region as a whole versus excuse me, versus like at the local level in Grafton, a project might have more immediate local concerns that the town wants to weigh in on. So for substantial regional impacts, we're looking at whether that project, just given the resources, services, and facilities that are required and associated with that, is it going to have an impact on the region as a whole? Could it benefit the region as a whole? It might be necessary for the well-being of the region. Is it potentially going to have impacts on regional resources, services, facilities? It might be located outside of the region, but affect our region. So if it's in a neighboring region, we might comment on that project. If it's a project that's affecting more than one town, if it's going to continue to cause ongoing concerns to the region or its communities, or if it's a project that has cumulative regional impacts as a result of kind of a phased project with multiple stages. So for Act 181, which was passed in 2024, the legislation made changes to Vermont's land use planning and regulatory requirements. For regional planning commissions, the main impacts of Act 181 we're required to update our regional plan and have that adopted by December 31st of this year. The two main things we need to do in our regional plans that we haven't done up until now is 181 created statewide feature land use categories. Our regional plan that was adopted in 2025 has a future land use map, and we've had a future land use map for decades in our regional plan. But Act 181 requires all the regional planning commissions to use the same land use categories statewide. Up until then, each RPC, each planning commission had their own land use categories and mapped them in different ways. So the state, through this process, wanted each of us to do this consistently. So when you put it all together, you have a statewide future land use map. And then the other requirement too is we need to incorporate regional and municipal housing targets. So the Vermont Housing Finance Agency develops housing targets for each region in the state, and they need to do this. They need to do statewide housing needs on a regular basis, because of federal funding requirements. But Act 181, or it was the Home Act in 2023, instructed the state to develop housing targets for each region. And then we as a regional planning commission are required to break down those regional housing targets. For each municipality, so assigning a housing target for each town, that will add up to that total, regional requirement. And I'll talk about these two, aspects of Act 181 in more detail. Another change in Act 181 is our regional plan now has to be approved by the state land use review board. It's still adopted by our commission. Our commission is made up of commissioners. We have 2 commissioners from each town in our region that represent their communities. And they're the ones that vote and adopt our regional plan. But once they adopt it, it has to go to the state land use review board for approval as well. So with Act 181, there was a lot of work in this last legislative session to make some changes to Act 181. So you may have heard some parts of Act 181, including Tier 3 and the road rule. So these were not related to our regional plan. Just briefly, Act 181 created a new tier system under the Act 250 permitting program. So that there would be 3 tiers. Tier 1 would allow for full exemption or partial exemption from an Act 250 permit requirement. And then Tier 3 would require an Act 250 permit for most projects within areas having natural resources, critical natural resources. And then Tier 2 would be everywhere else that's not within Tier 1 or Tier 3. And that would just be essentially the status quo under Act 250 currently, which up until Act 181, an Act 250 permit was based on the size of a project and not where the project was located necessarily. So with this legislative session, the legislature and then the governor did sign this bill, passed legislation to fully repeal Tier 3 and also fully repeal the road rule. So the road rule would also would have required an Act 250 permit for new roads and driveways more than a certain length associated with a development project. So those 2 components of Act 181 have been repealed. The rest of the legislation is still in place. But just in our meetings with communities over the last 6 months, we've gotten the most questions about Tier 3 and the road rule. And I think the legislators saw the feedback from Vermonters about concerns about Tier 3 and the road rule, and I think made a wise decision to repeal those components of it. So I'll talk now just about the main components of our regional plan update that we're still required to carry through on despite some of the changes to Act 181. So this screen lists out the regional future land use categories that all regional planning commissions are mapping. And I'll describe these in more detail in a minute here. But those are downtown and village centers, planned growth areas, village areas, transition and infill areas, resource-based recreation areas, enterprise, hamlets, and then there's 3 categories that fall under rural. There's general, agricultural, and forestry and conservation. So downtowns and village centers, you can look out the window and see Grafton Village Center. So that's an example of a village center. So these are our, often historic mixed-use town centers. They include a mix of different uses: commercial, residential, civic uses. These are often what people think of when they think of Vermont, our historic villages. Planned growth in village areas. These are existing settlements, but also future growth areas that are not currently developed adjacent to downtown and village centers. they're kind of the natural extension of the core center area of the village. They also include higher concentration of population, housing, and employment. And then the next three areas, enterprise areas, these are locations of higher economic activity and employment, such as industrial parks. So they're not kind of a smaller scale commercial activity you would see in a village or town center. They are in kind of dedicated locations outside of the town center. Resource-based recreation areas. In our region, these are major ski resorts, so Stratton Mountain, Mount Snow, Magic Mountain. So they include the actual ski resorts themselves, but they also include some of the housing and commercial uses that are associated with them. Transition and infill areas, these are areas of existing or planned commercial office mixed use development, often located along state highways. The intent here is to transform these areas into higher density mixed use settlements. And then for the three rural categories, rural general is generally low density residential areas. It can include productive farm and forest lands and natural areas. It can include commercial development too, that's compatible with the rural characteristics of the area. Agricultural and forestry, these are larger blocks of forest and farmland. Often these properties are enrolled in the current use program. But it also includes areas of low density residential uses, either on those properties or mixed in within primarily farm and forest areas within a community. And then rural conservation, these are lands with some type of important ecological value that just requires some special protection due to the uniqueness of the land. Or ecological importance. So any development should have minimal impact on natural resources within rural conservation areas. So for mapping, for doing the regional future land use map, we developed our map based on the definitions and criteria in statute. So those land use categories that I just walked through, those are defined in statute. And so we had to consider how the legislature defined those different land use categories. When the Regional Commission is part of the Vermont Association of Planning and Development Agencies, so that's made up of all the regional planning commissions and also regional development agencies as well. And as a group, we developed a mapping methodology so that we were all mapping in a consistent way across the RPCs. So that was part of our consideration too with the mapping. We looked at natural resources and other development constraints. We looked at existing development patterns and the availability of infrastructure to support growth. Importantly, we based a lot of our work on the regional future land use map and our 2025 plan. Just because we've had that future land use map going back many years and have been refining it and updating it with each of our regional plan updates. And then we also looked at what towns have for their future land use maps within their town plan, and if the town has zoning, also looking at their zoning map. So those were all the different criteria that we used for developing our map. And I do have some hard copies too of the regional and the I'll pass that around. So one is the regional map and one is just a map showing Grafton. So the map on the right is the proposed 2026 future land use map for our regional plan update. And then the map on the left is what's in our most current 2025 regional plan. So obviously the colors on the map are different. So part of this process too, we have to use consistent colors with all the other regional planning commissions so that when you put all the maps together, there aren't 11 different color schemes for each region in the state. So the colors are different and the land use category names are different too. Yeah, I'll pass this over. That one's a little more current. Yeah. But so the land use category names have changed from what we have in our 25 plan for the underlying goals and policies within our land use chapter and our land use plan are generally the same as in our 2025 plan. So how we talk about these different land use categories in our plan, we use the same policy language. We're just for example, in our 2025 plan, we had a land use category called resource, which is the darker green color on the 2025 regional plan map. For the updated Act 181 land use categories, that has become rural conservation. But the policies in our plan are the same for what we were promoting and for the resource land use category. And so this map shows, or this slide shows just the map for the town of Grafton. So zooming in on Grafton, and you'll see we've only mapped 4 land use categories in Grafton, but the legislation included 11 different land use categories. Most of our towns only have 3, 4, or 5 land use categories mapped out in them. Some of those land use categories like planned growth areas and enterprise areas, those are more common in larger communities in our region, like Rockingham and Brattleboro. But for most of our region, most of our towns are pretty small and similar to Grafton, and just have 3 or 4 or 5 land use categories. So the purple color is representing the village center for Grafton. Also a little bit of Cambridgeport is shown too in the lower right-hand corner that extends into Rockingham. And the yellow color is showing rural general, and the lighter sage green color is showing rural agriculture and forestry, and the darker green is showing rural conservation. I think the last meeting I attended was in March, and we did get some feedback from property owners. If you can see where my cursor is here, kind of north of Houghtonville and just to the west, there were some property owners in attendance at that meeting that previously this area was shown as rural conservation, and they had asked about changing that to rural agriculture and forestry. So we did change that on the map based on the discussion I had with them and just learning more about the use of that property. So that was a change from the last time I was at a meeting in Grafton. And then this is just showing side by side the 2026 map on the left and our current map on the right. So again, generally, what we have in our plan is resource. It's essentially the same as rural conservation. It's just this new category that we have to use based on the legislation, Act 181 legislation. Productive rural is similar to rural agriculture and forestry. rural general and the Act 181 legislation is a little more broad, so he had a rural residential category, which you'll see is just around Hodeyville and Cambridgeport. In our 2025 plan, so we have mapped more areas rural general just based on how the Act 181 legislation describes that land use category. But then there's also the village for Grafton in our 2025 plan, and that's shown on our 2026 plan as well. I guess I have a few more slides, but just want to see if there are any questions. Or I.
To what extent
Yeah,
can the town of Grafton
yeah.
modify these maps, picking this one?
Yeah, so with all these meetings that we're having with towns, we're taking any feedback that the town has. So just for example, the meeting I attended in March, getting that feedback from the property owners, we made that change just based on the concerns they had. So any feedback that the town has, you can provide that to me. We're trying to make we're trying to make all the accommodations we can to address any concerns that the town has. There may be some areas where based on statute criteria, we think it needs to be mapped a certain way to comply with statute, because we also need to make sure that the land use review board is able to approve our plan. So we're in the middle a little bit. But we're trying to, wherever we can, we're trying to make the changes based on input from towns. We are the Act 181 legislation requires that we submit a pre-application to the land use review board 60 days before our first public hearing. So we have a public hearing scheduled August 18th. So we just submitted our draft plan to the land use review board last Friday. But we are accepting comments now and making updates, and we'll have one public hearing in August, make changes, then we'll have another public hearing probably in October or November. So there's plenty of time for towns to provide us with input on the maps before it gets finalized.
When someone in the rural conservation area that has property and wanted to do, some logging. Is the implication of this is that the regional planning commission, if not be necessarily in favor of it?
So the rural conservation, we would only provide comment on any proposed land use if it requires an Act 250 permit. And forestry, if it's a forestry operation that's meeting state standards, an Act 250 permit is not required. So we wouldn't even be aware of any project. And
Since it's called conservation,
yeah,
would you be wary of it?
I don't know. No, it wouldn't. I mean, it's like for the rural conservation category, I mean, it talks about, these are land areas that have some type of ecological value. So it could be a very large wetland, it could be very steep slopes, it could be a critical habitat area for a certain species. And with any type of land development activity, if there is a natural resource on that land, like if there is a wetland, there's a whole separate wetlands permitting process that needs to go through the state. So the state already has regulations and permitting requirements in place for development that's happening in areas that have ecological resources. And so our our plan really doesn't have any regulatory role in that process. It would only be a much more substantial, like a much more substantial project was proposed that we would provide comments, and we're not the ones saying thumbs up or thumbs down, we're just, yeah, providing
But still you have,
comments.
putting the input, as you should. I guess what's hitting me is that I can see from what I know of Grafton. Is that there are areas in each of these three areas that would better fit in the other category.
Yeah,
When you get more specific to them.
yeah,
And, so I wonder what's the, not to say I don't accept it, but I wonder what's the value, how do you define the value of splitting it up this way?
yeah.
An alternative might be, you could just have one band color outside of the village,
Mhm.
in Cambridgeport, and a very careful definition of what you,
Yeah,
see as making sense for any particular piece of land.
yeah. Yeah, and so, one thing that we strive to do in our mapping is to, we're trying to map out larger blocks of land, so, I recognize that within these larger land use areas that are shown on the map, so for a larger area of rural general, there may be a property in there that is conserved, but we're trying to draw out larger districts region wide and not doing a parcel by parcel analysis. And so there are many examples, I guess, of a property within a larger land use area that doesn't quite fit. Just given its existing land use. But we're just going over to our 2025 plan, you can kind of see the difference between what we currently have and what we're required to do, where previously it was a little more similar to how you were describing, where we had the village and it was really just two land use areas. Village was much more broad in kind of swaths of area, but with the Act 181 legislation, we're needing to map, we're needing to generally follow property lines, or if it's a large piece of property, well, we might cut that in half, two different land use areas. So part of it is just responding to the new state requirements too.
That requirement is sense, which is force of zoning and map on the left is a zoning map. Map on the right is an abstract indication of how land's used of that.
Yeah, I understand the concern and, certainly seeing something mapped on, like based on property lines is very different than the map on the right that is more broad, but I just want to emphasize our map is not a zoning map. And so, Grafton is a town that's chosen not to have zoning. And our map has no impact on how land is used in Grafton. Again, only if it's a larger project under Act 250, we may submit comments on it, but I understand the concerns about showing property lines and mapping to property lines.
If I had to guess, the rural conservation area is the one which would concern residents more than anything else.
Yeah,
Having that accurately described as to what its impact is, what method of appeal might be available for land that was
Yeah.
designated under that. And November, even though you might think it's a long ways in the future,
Yeah.
for a body like this to collectively consider land use designations for given parcels is a pretty tall order. I mean, it's a lot of work, and I'm not sure we're gonna get there. It would be really nice if there were very clear guidelines on how one can modify that. A little bit like, the National Flood Insurance Program, where if you disagree with what the feds have given you for a designation of your flood, risk, you can go out and have an engineering study done to give a letter of map toleration.
Yeah,
That is at least one alternative, but it's inexpensive.
right. Yeah,
So we, as a body, really need to, as much as we can, address these issues before they become issues.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I understand that, and I understand, yeah. It takes time. Yeah.
Question?
I have a question about the village center
Yeah.
designation.
Yeah.
So, we now in Grafton have a village center designation.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if this dark, purple area represents the boundaries of that village center.
So it encompasses the existing village center, but it expands on it to what we're showing. So we're showing a slightly larger village center for Grafton. I'm just gonna go over this slide just about the state designation program, just to help respond to this question. So part of Act 181 included reforms to the state designation program. So this is what Grafton currently participates in. Its designated village centers through the state designation program. There used to be, I think, 5 different designations towns could get. And they've simplified that. So now there are 2 designations. There are centers and neighborhoods. So all existing designated village centers like Grafton's are automatically transferred over into this new program. And so when we mapped village centers, we started off with mapping existing designated village centers, but then looked for opportunities to expand those boundaries where it made sense. Before Act 181, the state designation program, it was pretty strict with what you could include in the village centers. And now it's opened up a little bit, so there's really only benefits for the town to have a larger village center, because through this program, there's tax credit funding for commercial properties, including rental properties for building rehabilitation work. Towns get state grant funding priority. There's water and wastewater permit fee reductions, and then there's additional benefits as well that are listed on the Department of Housing and Community Development's website. So yeah, we're looking for opportunities to.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that I understood you correctly. Because you gathered the reason I was asking the question, which is about the benefits.
Yeah.
So what I think I heard you say is that when we have this representation of a larger village center than what is what we applied for to be the village center, that those benefits apply to all this area that you said is the village center.
That's correct. So
Okay,
all properties, once our plan is approved by the land use review board, all properties that are mapped in that purple color, fall within the village center, and then will be eligible for those benefits. So some of the benefits are just for properties, but some of the benefits, like the state grant funding priority, that's a townwide benefit.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that was going to be my question as well. So I think you're answering our question that the town doesn't need to do anything at this point.
That's fair.
We don't have to apply for an expanded village
Yeah.
center designation, so.
Yeah.
this is great.
That's
Does
right.
that also apply to this purple section in Cambridgeport?
So it does, so that would be, currently Cambridgeport is not a designated village center. So if this gets approved, then that area of Cambridgeport in Grafton. Those properties would also be eligible for those benefits, and there's. Before Act 181, towns had to apply directly to the state for the designation program, and now it's all through the regional planning commissions through our thing. So also, I want to note as well that our regional plan is valid once it's adopted, valid for 8 years, just like your town plan. But as you can see, there's a lot more connection between our regional future land use map and the state designation program, Act 250 exemption. So it is our intention to be updating at least our future land use map more regularly. We're not going to wait 8 years to update it because there are towns that might want to expand their village centers. There are towns that might want a new village center. And to do that, we need to change our map, our regional land use map. So it is, the regional land use map is something that's going to be more updated more regularly too. I would say too, we want to get the map as correct as we can, but if in 2 years' time there's an issue with how we've mapped something in Grafton, there's just going to be more opportunities, I think, to update it, just because we need to, based on these other connections. And so I got a few more slides. So, and this is kind of providing an overview of the Act 181 framework, and now this is kind of outdated because Tier 3 has gone away. But this is just trying to show the connection between all these different things. So the connection between our regional future land use map and the state designation program in Act 250. So along the top of the slide, these are the different land use categories that I just walked through. And you can see how directly under that they feed into the state designation program. So any downtown center or village center becomes a center, and the designation program planned growth area or village area becomes a neighborhood. I just wanted to note too, for Grafton, we're not showing any planned growth area or village area, because to have those land use categories, a town needs to have zoning bylaws in place. So it's an interesting thing where it's a requirement in the future land use category to have zoning bylaws in place, even though it's kind of a forward-looking mapping process we're going through. So just if there are questions about why don't we have a village area around your village center, it's just because the town doesn't have zoning. So, and then so under that is the relation to Act 250. So Grafton is not eligible for the Tier 1 exemption, again, because it does not have zoning bylaws. So Tier 1A provides full exemption from Act 250. That's just for downtown and village centers and planned growth areas. And then Tier 1B provides partial exemption just for housing projects up to 50 dwelling units. And that's those 3 land use categories as well as village areas. And then everything else that does not qualify as Tier 1A or Tier 1B is Tier 2, which is just the status quo for Act 250. And so for Grafton, everything will be Tier 2. Currently, everything is Tier 2. It's just the new name for it in Grafton. So, and then again, Tier 3 has been repealed. So the Land Use Review Board was going through a mapping and rulemaking process for Tier 3, and that has stopped because that component has gone away.
And interrupt you one second.
Sure.
Because Grafton Village Center, Cambridgeport are not gonna be considered tier one because we do not have zoning in this community.
Yeah.
Does that obviate the access to the grants and so forth, or are they still available to us?
So those grants are still available for the town. The state grant funding priority, that's available to all towns with a village center, whether or not they have something.
Thank you. Getting that village center designation was a real good thing for us.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, it's a great benefit to have. And so I just have a couple more slides just to talk about the housing targets. So as I mentioned, the Wyndham region has a housing target from the Vermont Housing Finance Agency, so based on different population projections and assumptions about growth. They gave us a lower and upper range for both the year 2030 and 2050. So for 2030, they estimated we needed 2,571 to 3,730 new housing units. So that's any type of housing that could be a 10-unit multifamily, that could be a single family home. So it's not prescribing a certain type of housing, but that's the total number of additional dwelling units needed in the region. And then by 2050, they estimated 7,993 to 15,635. Again, based on different population growth assumptions. So obviously that's a lot of housing. Just given the current pace of housing development in our region, it's highly unlikely to reach those targets. These are for the region and for the municipal housing targets. These are only goals to provide needed housing. So there's no one checking that housing is being constructed, and there's no requirement that we meet these targets.
And this doesn't include second homes.
So those do count. They don't distinguish between a year-round or a seasonal home for housing production. Yeah.
And then on the unit, so if you have a 10-unit, that's one dwelling.
So that's 10 dwellings.
It is 10,
yeah. So
okay, okay.
it's counted based on the dwelling units, not the number of buildings. So
Okay.
it's yeah.
I misunderstood you, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any numbers on what has been achieved over the last year?
I don't. It would be interesting to. I mean, most towns I talk to, it's 2, 3, 4 houses being built a year. I'm not sure if you all know in Grafton, on average, how many houses are built a year.
We have one, so we better go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not many. I mean, it's the most housing we're seeing is in places like Brattleboro and Bellows Falls, where there's more infrastructure in place, or larger multifamily developments. But yeah,
Over the next 5 years, you close 500 per year
yeah,
for the county.
mhm, yeah,
And for Grafton,
Yes.
it's 5 per year.
yeah.
I don't think we've had 25 new houses in the last 100 years.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
what do you do when you have this, it's not a
Yeah.
criticism, but
yeah.
what do you do when you have a situation in which you have these lows
Mhm.
and you know they can't do that? Well, it's not, how do you
Yeah,
begin to make policies and
Yeah.
that would allow at least some of that to be met at
Yeah.
a greater rate than is happening now? I mean, how would we get 2 or 3
yeah.
houses in Grafton?
Well, I think it's important for the town to just keep in mind, what the town has control over. And there's a lot of things when it comes to housing and supporting more housing. There's a lot of things that towns don't have control over. So a lot of our issues with housing, the lack of housing right now, have to do with housing costs and labor costs. And there's just being a disconnect between the cost of constructing a new home and what average incomes are in our region. And so it's just given average household incomes compared to what it costs to build a house, there's just this big disconnect. So for municipalities, I mean, I just encourage towns to, you know, if they have zoning bylaws, to make sure their zoning is up to date and is supporting and allowing for a mix of different types of housing, is not overly restricting. I mean, like if towns have town-owned land, you know, they can consider, if it's in an appropriate location, consider trying to work with a developer to develop housing on that. But towns are limited in what they will do.
Have you done any investigating into the issue of abandoned and vacant housing? Because across the state,
Yeah,
the figures that have been bandied about are anywhere near correct.
yeah,
We could meet at least a third of our housing need.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
probably, you know. I don't know much about construction, but I
Yeah.
imagine a lot cheaper than building something brand new.
yeah, yeah, and that would, you know, all that work. Of rehabilitating existing structures to add more housing, I mean, that all would count towards the housing targets. There are state programs to provide funding for, you know, property owners that just, you know, have small multifamily properties to rehabilitate units that are currently vacant to get them back online. So it's,
Do you have any idea of how many abandoned units there are in Wyndham?
I don't know. Yeah, it's hard because the data, you know, the data that we get from the Census and American Community Survey is not very accurate. When it comes to housing.
So an abandoned home is not included until it's revitalized. So there's some,
Good question.
there's a project going on in Brattleboro, you know about it, it's the mobile home they're being moved out of the floodplain.
Yeah, yeah,
So those are all being reconstructed, it's new homes,
yeah,
so those are counted, so you removed
yeah,
10, but
yeah.
you rebuilt 10, so how does that?
I think, yeah, I mean, my guess is, they're looking at, you know, net new units, so it's.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is, the housing targets for the region are, you know, these are new units that need to be added, not just replacement units.
Mm.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I recognize the targets, are high.
But just, thinking of, trying to accomplish something,
Yeah,
I'm wondering if, the 11 regional plan commissions, one, if they could come up with a reasonable estimate of the number of abandoned homes
yeah,
in each of the areas. And, make an argument, making rehabbing those somewhat of a priority.
yeah,
It's been discussed, I know, in the legislature, but
yeah,
no one's picking up on it.
Yeah.
It's, let's get a new house, find a way to make it less than 500,000 and we succeeded.
Mhm. Yeah.
And, so I might,
Yeah.
get that kind of
Yeah,
energy
yeah, it's a good idea.
amongst yourselves to say, hey, first find out whether you think it's a goal that you should have and,
Yeah.
and then, we could have a stronger voice for both together.
Yeah. And I do think it's, yeah, in terms of cost, I mean, it is a more cost effective way for add housing to your fleet versus building from scratch.
There's a lot of homes over in the Magic and Stratton area, new homes,
Yep, yeah,
they're all second homes.
yeah, that's, yeah, just in terms of, right, housing construction, that's a lot of, yeah, what we see. For the most part is second homes. Yeah, and again, it's.
Some are third and fourth homes.
And something that too is the, right, the cost of constructing a new home, for someone that has the means to afford a second home.
Mm.
They're able to purchase that new home versus, yeah,
It's providing work for a lot of contractors,
Yeah.
it's great,
Yeah.
I just saw the project today,
Yeah.
20 contractors there.
yeah,
And,
yeah. Yeah. So just to give you a sense of our timeline, so as I mentioned, we needed to submit a pre-application to the Land Use Review Board for them to do an initial review of our plan, so that they're looking at the future land use map, but they're looking at our full regional plan based on statute requirements and providing comments on the entirety of the plan. We'll be holding our first public hearing August 18th. That'll be in person at our office in Brattleboro, but also remote. We'll have more information on our website closer to the public hearing date. And then after that, we're going to be making updates to the plan based on what we hear back from the Land Use Review Board and public comments. But again, if there are any comments, getting those to us the sooner the better, just so we can start reviewing those and making changes. But we would do a more substantial update after the public hearing, August 18th. We'll hold second public hearing in October or November, and then consider adoption of the plan in November or December. Again, we have to adopt our plan by December 31st of this year, based on statute requirements.
And is there still then after that another step with the land use review board, they have to give their final approval
That's correct.
after
Yeah.
WRC, so.
Yeah, so after we adopt our plan, then we send it to the land use review board, they have to hold a public hearing and prove it too, so.
Okay.
But the reason why they have the pre-application requirement is, hopefully we addressed everything, all the comments they have, so that when we submit the final plan, there aren't any comments on it, from the land use review board. And so this is my contact information, which is available on our website as well. When you go to our website, we have a dedicated page on the website just for the 2026 regional plan update that has all the draft maps and draft chapters to review. And then our regional plan is actually, it's a web-based plan, so the current 2025 regional plan is entirely available online, so you can also get to that plan from our website as well. Just if you're curious to see what we have in our current plan versus what we're proposing to update with this process, so.
Is there a full expansion of the definitions of the various land use categories somewhere
Yeah.
and how they might be modified at some point?
Yeah, so I just have one copy, give this to you, Eric.
Well, or you can just put it on the
Yeah,
email to us as a
Yeah.
PDF.
I'll send this out in an email, this is on our website, this is the land use chapter from our regional plan.
Okay.
So this is, in terms of the regional future land use map, this includes kind of the narrative description for those land use categories and includes the policies too. Related to those different land use categories, so. I can send this around by email, but this is the chapter to refer to. When you're looking at the map to kind of understand.
It seems like we get partially there, but
Yeah,
how do we, after the regional plan has been adopted,
yeah.
how does a given landowner or the town modify it?
So. Right now, right now is a period of time to provide comments.
Yeah.
Between now and the first hearing, and then also have the second hearing opportunity as well. We are, as I mentioned, because our regional future land use map is now connected with the state designation program. We don't have a process in place yet for how we're gonna be reviewing requests to update the map. So that's kind of a next step that we'll need to work on is coming up with a process so that. I mean, my thought is rather than I think we wanna. We're gonna be needing to update our regional feature land use map, but I think we wanna kind of have a standard process for that, and if it's. Once a year, once every 2 years, we make updates, that's a process that the commission, I think, will need to figure out. We've been very focused just on getting to this point.
I understand that.
Plan, but yeah, but that's kind of the next step, was what's that process.
If we're to explain this to a landowner
Yeah.
who's looking at that map and saying, okay, what is rural conservation? What can I do with my land? What if I disagree with the designation? How do I change it? What the process is?
Yeah,
And I expect that the land use review board is probably gonna do something in rules the way they started to with tier 3, but it should be well known to them before they start that, but we need to have a clear way of appealing.
yeah, and at this point, right, at this point. The land use review board was working on rules for tier 3. At this point, the land use review board is not doing any rulemaking associated with rural conservation. At this time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, right, just to lay out here, I think. We're not done dealing with the regulatory body here, with the regional plan. And, right?
Right.
It's an advisory board, not a regulatory board. And what I've learned from you is that the region, that in Act 250 hearings. The regional WRC is notified of all Act 250 activity in our region. Chooses the ones to participate in that may have regional impact. So they wouldn't necessarily participate in all Act 250 applications. Is that
If it-
understanding correctly?
But the town could. The regional planning commission, the municipality, both have standing for an Act 250 application.
I see.
Yeah.
So
and
what you're concerned about is if a landowner has a designation
Right.
and the town has stand.
The town, and actually, well, the landowner also has some standing, but what I'm driving towards is getting a clear definition of what the rules are.
Right.
And I don't wanna see what has happened with river corridors repeated.
Yeah.
Where they just put a big old broad brush down on the river and you have to deal with it or hire yourself an engineer to come, civil engineer. And it really is complicated and they should have done the homework to begin with to know where the river corridor should be as opposed to where they just placed it.
and I think, I know, just for example, I think there's a current Act 250 application right in Grafton.
Yeah,
that
it just gets
keeps
pretty well scuttled because
Yeah.
the river corridor turned out not to be where the original map showed it to
Right.
be.
And I think, and I wasn't. I know like Alyssa Sabeto at our office was involved in that, and I think the comments from the project review committee for WRC were primarily around just flood hazard concerns.
Correct.
But like for the town, the town has standing, just like the regional planning commission does. And we're just focused on projects that have more of a regional impact, but the
Right.
town understandably is gonna wanna comment on more projects. And the town uses its town plan as basis. And
Right.
the town might wanna go, and as it should, go into more detail about things that we as a regional planning commission aren't gonna be concerned about, because they're more of a local.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would submit that the regional commission has a certain amount of sway capital, if you will, with the Agency of Natural Resources as to how they choose to implement their rules. And the river corridors has just been a thorn in my side because of how they implemented it, and I don't wanna see
Yeah.
the land designations that are coming through with this be in the same category.
Thank you, River.
All I had. Yeah.
Any other questions? So we have two hearing dates, the 18th of August, and then what was the date in November?
That one, so that's still to be determined, it's gonna be based on. Just how many revisions we need to make based on comments from the land use review board, but so for the public hearing in August. August 18th, we will be sending out notice to all of our towns. To select board chairs with that public hearing date. At least 30 days before we just decided on this date last Friday, so we haven't sent out notices yet. And similarly, for once the public hearing number 2 is scheduled. We will also send out notice again 30 days before that to all select board chairs. And we'll have that information on our website as well.
I wonder, is it exactly you, Matt, although we'll leave your house if we decide to go forward with it. But, for preparing for the August 18th meeting, if we might consider putting this as an insert in the news, so everyone sees it. If we hold our meeting in July as a listening meeting. I mean, we can't
And
do
just
this more than
offer it
Who's gonna come up?
for appeal, yeah.
Show up that's really worried about property here and there that they have and wondering what it means. And if we just put a little notice in the draft news, we've got 2, 3, 4 people who put this in the draft news. But yeah,
And maybe a web link to it so they can actually drill down and see the property.
yeah,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, on our website, on the 2026 regional plan update page, we do have an interactive map too online, so you can zoom in and out.
That's a good idea.
A picture is worth 1,000 words.
well,
Put that
that's
in
what I'm
there.
saying, you put
Yeah.
this in the draft news.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah.
The graphic news printed color.
No, we put
I'm
this
afraid
as an
that
insert,
you
we
have
asked
to
when
out.
No, they won't do color.
Oh, it doesn't
You
matter.
and I have to show
We
up.
can.
Yeah, I think, if we put this, we'll get a response. If we put a notice in there, even with a link and so on. Well, it'll be a much smaller response. Vanished.
Yeah.
Well, you only got
Even shades of gray
Four
or.
shades of gray, yeah.
No, what I'm thinking is we asked Matt for 400 copies of this and, Frank and I show up and put it in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So.
You might wanna zoom in on a little piece of it and then put the link. And maybe
Oh,
that'll
yeah,
catch
that's
them.
land,
Yeah, because, yeah.
Yeah.
You can zoom in on it on.
Yeah.
on-
Have you heard feedback from other towns yet, of how they're gonna approach it?
It's varied, we've definitely gotten feedback from other towns, and have made changes, and yeah, it's really varied quite a bit from town to town. I do think the area where, I understand, most concern is over rural conservation. I think, a lot of it has to do with how that land use category was named in the statute, just including the word conservation, even though it's not. There's no implication that that land needs to be conserved, having the name conservation, I think. Creates concerns, which I understand, so I wish there was a different name for that one, but that's what we're stuck with. So. So yeah, but it's been a good process and I've gotten a lot of good feedback and. With all these meetings with towns, I explained, we're having to do this mapping for the whole region and doing our best but we need community input too, because you all know your town, so.
So rural, it was rural residential, I believe. Is that correct?
So I'll go back from that. Let's see, so. So rural general was most similar to rural residential, but. In our 2025 plan. I would say we were a little more constrained with what was included in rural residential, but with Act 181. That definition for rural general was a little more broad, so that's why there's quite a bit more rural general. In the 2026 map compared to rural residential. But I mean, you can see like generally. For what was resource is now rural conservation. And you can see like along the western edge of town, it's generally the same area. There is kind of north central, there is rural conservation where we can have resource. And I try to remember, I know there's a town owned property. That town, is that right? Is it state or town land, like in the north kind of central part of town? I just don't remember.
There's a state forest.
State forest.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
No,
these were called
Putnam.
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 They're all critical resource on that
Brett,
old map.
near the bottom of, the Putnam Forest Road is. You come straight across on the upper part of the chimneys. Beyond the state forest, so the small state forest, it's only 80 acres. And it's Putnam's own requirement. But it's very low down there, it's nowhere near all that for all nonsense.
But generally, generally. What we're showing is rural conservation generally matches what we were showing as resource, and then. Kind of in that area outside the village center, we had mapped either as productive rural or rural residential, and now that's either rural ag and forestry or rural general. So there are some differences, obviously.
So what happened to the critical resource that we worked with 10 years ago? Critical resource?
Yeah, sorry, critical resource areas or.
Yeah, there was a land use category.
And it included our Molly Beatty, Putnam Forest, and then,
Some wetlands, I
Turner
think.
Hill.
In the town plan or.
I think actually in the regional, it may have been into our town plan.
Yeah,
It was.
yeah, well, that's something we would have, looked at, so for. Or flipping around here, so like in doing the mapping. A lot of it's based on our 2025 map, but as you saw, the 2025 map. Is broader. And so with these Act 181 changes, we had to get more detail. Looking at properties, and so we were looking at. Natural resources and other development constraints, so a lot of the mapping, a lot of the technical mapping was done by Jeff Nugent at our office, and so I know he looked at. Those like critical resource areas as well in developing that, but it might be that, sometimes you have a pretty small critical resource area. And we're not, if it's just a small 2-acre property. That has a critical resource area, but it's kind of surrounded by rural general. We're just gonna call that rural general. Because we also have separate policies in our plan that address those critical natural resources. So we have policies about protecting wetlands and protecting sensitive wildlife habitat area that's not connected with a land use category. It's just a standalone policy.
We had our village park was part of the critical resource area, and now it's rural ag and forestry.
The public, the state and town own parklands and then, the major brooks and some reason it doesn't include Saxon River. But that was making a statement that, leave this stuff alone. Recommend it's private, with the brook areas and so on.
Yeah, that's the map I'm looking at.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly. So
okay.
for that's Lawrence.
Yeah, so we.
Or at least we worked hard on that.
And so our map, just to note too, our map, the online version of the map does have a overlay of flood hazard and river corridor areas. And we're not showing that here just because it gets to be too much information. Yeah.
So those maps would be later when we talk, get more deep into our town plan.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you about the data that we've talked about in the past. When's that gonna be ready for us to start working on?
Yeah, because your town plan's up in 2028, so.
Yeah.
In order to promote or preserve the animal corridors, habitat connection corridors. Have any of the towns that you've spoken with talked about a scheme to reimburse or incentivize landowners to have a certain corridor through their land that would be in a rural conservation kind of category, so that would be a good place for the animals to cross?
Yeah.
Has that ever crossed?
Well, yeah, good question. I mean, I know, I know through like a conservation easement, I mean, that's a mechanism for, protecting and preserving a portion of a property from development. And I mean, that's a good idea to kind of set it up specifically for wildlife corridor areas. I think there are some towns that have set aside funds for conservation purposes, so they might have a dedicated fund that they put aside money every year town meeting for. A lot of that's done through like, private conservation organizations.
I think even the language of municipalities purchasing easement for corridors exists in the regional plan.
Yeah, so it's one of those, decisions for a town to make if it wants to commit funding to that type of.
Ma'am, I see that there's a good deal of the trails that we have in Grafton that are designated either rural agricultural forestry or rural conservation. Are we missing out on anything by not having those designated resource-based recreation areas, or would we not qualify for that?
Good question. So the idea behind the resource-based recreation area, that classification, it's really meant for these much larger scale recreational facilities that also include, it might include lodging or a large number of second seasonal homes and businesses. So it's so in our region there are only 4 resource-based recreation areas, all of the city resorts. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But it's good question.
One more question that, about village center designation. When we look at this purple area more in detail, it occurs to us that perhaps it might even be expanded further.
Yeah.
What would be the mechanism to make that happen? If
You can just reach out to me. Yeah. So, yeah, so for all these requests, yeah, from towns, some of the changes are really straightforward and I can say at a meeting, yes, we'll make that change, but some things we have to go back and look at and kind of, cause it can be kind of hard to just tell, looking at this map without all the other inputs we have, but
Yeah.
but we can, yeah, if there are additional areas, you think should be included in that village center. We can look at that and expand it if it makes sense. One thing I just mentioned to towns is, you know, if it was just up to me, I would be happy to make as large of a village center as the town would like, but the land use review board might have comments and say, no, it doesn't make sense for this area to be in the village center and we need to modify it, so.
Well, yeah, but on the other hand, it is pretty narrowly drawn, as it was really created under the then rules.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can readily see that there is probably room for expansion. Because the village actually does, you know, build up.
Yeah.
Village is larger than
Yeah.
shown.
Yeah.
That, I believe there was something like 95 structures in it originally. And probably could be more,
Yeah.
so we can.
Yeah.
Well, we had that, we discussed that when we first. Was, to apply for center, village center, we wanted to go up 35 out toward the fire station.
Yeah.
And further down towards the ponds, and it was
Yeah.
denied at that point.
Yeah.
But those are all vital areas for the community.
Yeah, the program used to be a lot more constrained.
Yeah.
It does seem to be opening up. With this new process, we're kind of waiting and seeing what feedback we get, because we are. Expanding most of the village center, so let's see if we get comments back.
Yeah, well, it seems worth, trying, because there are those benefits that might be available.
That's right.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to try.
Right now, the cheese factory down here is excluded.
Yeah.
We really wanted that.
The old, highway department.
You have a.
Yeah.
New map up front.
Yeah.
They have a new map that is the same as that one.
Okay. With critical resource,
Public and conserved lands, but
it matches that and.
figuring 17 PDF files, 21 PDF files.
Is it showing the? Putnam Forest and, yes,
Lloyd 80 Putnam, yeah. And privately conserved, which I see on that one as well.
Turner's out there.
There you go. Sorry, I'll do it now.
Village Park too was out.
Yeah. Yeah, Turner's.
Where's the park? Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait, yeah.
Yeah, it's much easier to be in person there.
Fair enough.
And
From there.
everything submitted for this round,
Yep.
the next round is in August.
Yeah, we
We'll
just.
dig deeper in those as we get into it.
One, yeah.
There's a lot of them in here
Yeah.
that are great. There's circuit coverage for it,
But,
it's listen.
so yeah, the land use review board has 60 days. Their statute to
Like the.
review our plan, so we wanted to get it done soon,
Yeah, we-
get their comments back.
Yeah.
Do you have to keep an updated map?
Yeah.
to have an active with the, you know, tax, right?
So, we do not, there is a activity database online. Which I think is helpful to kind of look at. And you can, you know, search just for the town of Grafton to see what Act 250 permit applications there have been in the last 20 years, just to get a sense of, you know, what requires an Act 250 permit, and what's a major versus a minor. And I think that's helpful to see, because that program's been around.
One reason I asked is because if you included that land across the state. More than need our. Forest cover. And.
Yeah.
And you can easily update it, so someone goes out and what follows and happen when.
For current use, yeah.
Current use,
I'm sorry, so,
so.
yeah. Yeah.
So that's important in terms of these discussions of what's happening in Montpelier.
Yeah, and I know there are discussions about, because the state has conservation goals for 2030 and 2050, and I know there are. Discussions about including current use lands to meet those goals, because. We're pretty close to 30%, they're getting 15% will be very hard, I think, so. I agree, I think it makes sense to include current use.
Well, is that something that the regional planning commissions again can get together and say, hey, makes sense, like let's in our level. No, just to be, if the planning commissions to be a little more proactive. Some of these issues.
Yeah, we get asked to, it's, you know, maybe not the regional planning commissions, but, you know. Often directors from regional planning commissions are asked to provide, input, testimony to legislators, and so.
And Chris is chair of a board of all the regional
Yeah,
executives.
yeah, and Chris, our director, has been involved with the conservation plan efforts for the state.
Yeah. I guess what I'm suggesting is don't wait till you're asked, just.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good advice. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for.
Thank you.
Thank you, this is great.
Thank you very much, Matt. So we'll. Asking you for more information if we get. further into,
Yeah, and I know Grafton went for a municipal plan grant last year through the town plan.
yeah, we were new at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know we kind of didn't have a lot of time, but I know those applications will be. Due in October and November, I don't know if the applications are available online yet, but just something to consider. For your town plan, if you wanna try applying for a grant.
We will,
Yeah,
we will.
We were rushed when we went to
Yeah.
finally do it, and it
yeah,
was a learning experience for our administrator, which was good.
yeah, next time around it'll be easier.
We need to get more of our ducks in a row and then
Yeah,
fire, because at some point we're gonna want staff, probably you,
yeah,
to assist us with getting over the finish line.
yeah,
Or getting stuff to talk about at this level first.
yeah. Yeah, well, happy to talk about that more when it makes,
Thank you again.
thank you.
We can move into, get our minutes,
Yes,
May 12th. Everyone have a chance to look those over,
yeah,
any correction?
oh, I had a couple of typos.
And Mark, or the plot on this.
No, I didn't hear,
Not Mark, okay, yes.
no,
Oh. Don't worry.
They misspelled Matthew's last name, Bing Bing.
Yep.
And up here, under Conway School, in the next to last sentence, to protect rather than protest valuable information.
Okay. Is it AI did that?
Yeah.
I didn't catch that.
Thanks, have a good night.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks for that.
All right,
Well, given what's happening at the state level, both words, too, you know.
yeah, protect and protect. Protect and protect. All right, other than that, looks good. Make those changes noted. Typos. Motion to approve.
Oh.
Second.
Ron and Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so move. Approve, make April 28th special meeting minutes. Thank you, Clayton, for cleaning that up, getting that out. That looked great. I did not see any typo. I quickly read through it in the heat of the day. Anyone else?
So you have the job now.
All right,
I like it.
approval of the, motion to approve the 28th special meeting.
So move.
Eric,
Second.
you can approve your minutes if you want.
Okay, I
I'll
didn't.
make a motion if you want. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? April 8th minutes are approved. It's 8:45. Do we want to dig into anything other than some old business?
You know, the only thing I would like us to spend at least a minute on is, do we want to make any, public notice of, this draft match and a chance to get people to, comment?
Forgot that.
Say, well, as I suggested, maybe a quarter page, it might even be blank, just have the outline of Matt and then type in it. Or go to this site
Yeah.
to see what's proposed, your draft map for your property. That should grab people's attention, and then.
Yeah.
And then, state like very clearly that our meeting in July will be, we'll listen to people's comments.
Yep,
That makes sense?
it does.
Like that.
I think having a little colored something or other, whether it's, readable or not, it's just,
You left it blank, it might even be more powerful,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Even though it's gonna be shades of gray, it's still, attention getting.
yeah, either way.
and I got a few extra copies here. I'll leave these downstairs. Anybody else need any extra copies? Lisa, you had it set. Let's see. All right, well. You want to contact Wendy with that?
Sure.
Thank you. And that'll be for, August.
Well, we wanna. The.
Oh, no,
that
July,
meeting
sorry.
is in
I'm
August.
sorry, no, I meant July, sorry.
Yeah.
I meant July.
I would contact her, tomorrow or Thursday or something, and then move forward. And we're talking about a quarter page or something like that,
Maybe that much.
and. And if she wants us to pay for it, well, we've got a budget, so.
Mhm. Yeah, we've got funding for that. Be nice to put a colored one in there, but we'd have, how many publications do do? Does she do?
Sorry,
How many papers does she put out?
I don't know, but it's in the hundreds. And everybody gets them automatically. Mailing address, that's what, about 400 or so?
How many papers,
Can't hear you, but it would be great if you
Yeah.
use your microphone.
how many papers, does the Grafton News put out?
Well, every address in Grafton gets one. And there are many subscribers outside of town.
So there's
It's
300 or 400?
probably close to 1,000.
Really?
Close, yeah, it's
So. Yeah. Now, what I can't do is send her any document. It's not set up for that, it's a false map.
So you should be able to get links for the documents off of the WRC website. Or
Yeah, and
Mac
then-
can provide them.
And then you,
Those in the minutes, that she do, well. Then you gotta go select Grafton.
we just give her a hard
Well-
copy and she can
Well,
scan it?
okay, I mean, I guess I need to understand. I'm not proposing that we try and reproduce this,
No,
No.
a section of it perhaps.
so, I mean, take a small section.
Just
Yeah.
click part of it.
Okay, I thought to take the town outline. And
You
then,
shrunk this down. Oh,
uh,
like,
you know, wording in it that, you know, says as I suggested, you know, go to this site. To see what's proposed for your map, for your property. Come to the planning commission meeting on July 14th, or
Yeah.
whatever, 13th,
for appeals,
for listening.
yeah, listening.
We will be there to listen to your
And,
concerns.
you can do it, you can clip it a little bit, and then you can make it look like you ripped it out. Of the map, and then.
Mhm.
put it forward. So,
Yeah, we have,
But the,
well, we need the,
and you can make it black and white.
yeah. Which title
If
is
she
she?
needs it, or it would probably go in.
Can you send me a black and white copy, then I could go with that to. Monday? Okay.
All right, let's move on to doing that, so we'll forego the chapter review to next,
There's, oops.
so we can have our July meeting be a focus on this. Depending on what kind of activity we have. If it's a lot, we'll stay with this, if not, we'll move on to our plan, town plan.
Yeah.
Chapters.
We should come prepared with the land use designation definitions.
Yeah,
So Matt's sending us copies of that chapter on land use. So it's all in there. And,
mhm,
There's also like that,
Yeah.
there you go.
yeah, I don't know how to show up for.
or as a JPEG or PDF.
See them. Okay,
And then she could enlarge that to whatever will fit as a photo and. For our article. Basically,
you wanna discuss the wording now?
sure,
Yeah. We don't, like I said, we don't do it now, it doesn't, somehow it doesn't get done, you know, so. So,
the Grafton Planning Commission is. Going to. Well. We advertised this meeting and then. We got. 3 or 4 people to come, to see this. Hopefully we'll get more to attend. So we're gonna address concerns, based on,
We gotta
The
invite
futures.
comments. Invite
invite
comments.
comments. It's not an appeal yet, right? It's just.
Invite comments about the regional, plan, land designations. For Grafton.
Yep, landowners. Invite landowners.
Invite comments from landowners about. Maybe we could even get Matthew to be on a Zoom with us to hear what people have to say.
So what do you have as a beginning here?
Invite. I have to invite landowners to comment on Wyndham Region. Draft future land use map.
Okay, that works,
What's
that
that?
works.
I'm writing it down.
Okay.
Invite landowners to comment on Wyndham Regional Draft Future Land Use Map
For Grafton.
for Grafton. PC invites landowners to comment on Wyndham Regional Draft Future Land Use Map. Grafton.
So what if we had after that, please go to such and such a, into the regional commission
Yeah.
We have to,
site to see the proposed land use designation for Grafton, including individual properties.
yeah, you have to have a link there.
So that goes the end, and then we need to invite people, just say, the planning commission is setting its July 14th meeting, or whatever day it is. Hear comments.
Yeah.
All those are affected.
And he come up with a draft and send it to us. And then we can individually comment,
What's that?
send us individually.
Well, not really.
It's just an article, it's one in the paper.
Well, you wanna send me what you have. And I'll put it together in one statement. And then I will send it back to you and you can send it out to each of us individually. If there are any
Okay,
comments,
We shouldn't be commenting on it.
yeah, and no comments done. There. Cross speaking. But. Send it to me, I'll put it
If you've
together.
got the gist of it, why don't you just send it to Wendy?
I'll at least let you know, so if you see
Yeah.
something, you say, oh, no.
Yeah, you can send it to me and
And then I'll contact Wendy. And
then you just get the JPEG to you.
I
just
send it
I'm like,
All right, anything else on that? Old business, I had 181 state opposition progression. I know it's gotten around. We've gotten some comments back over the past several weeks. Not comments, but letters back, thanking us for doing the letter. Not sure if it got sent out to,
I'm sorry, I don't wanna feel, do we have to have a motion on that?
on the ad.
Yeah.
Do we want a motion on it?
I know,
I don't think we need to.
it's a non-meeting.
But, or we can make a motion.
I'll make a motion, heard some input, we'll twist the reference.
Okay, I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so move, thank you. And now you have to do it.
Yeah, well, that's it, see what kind of response we get.
Hmm,
I was surprised at the spring meeting, I mean, we had people here. the 8 or so that were there for that reason. I thought there'd be more.
I think after what happened with 181 tier 3, if towns start doing this, same thing, they're gonna come out
Yeah,
and make hopefully good comments and protect their land. Uh. Weston and Sampson, I just got another update. They've got 3 more water samples. That they can do. They got approvals from 3 more homeowners in the village. I'm not sure who they are yet, but he said he had 3 more, and he's gonna continue to send out letters and make contact to get more sampling done. And let's leave from Weston and Sampson. The Conway School presentation, did everyone get the link for that? It's pretty neat what they did. I haven't looked at it thoroughly, but it's quite a project what they did. And it's pretty much hypothetical, but worthy to admire what the kids did, I guess.
they're not kids,
I know. And then I have administrative assistants, just. We want to talk about that anymore. As we get into the town plan.
no, we've got to move on it fairly soon, but.
Yep, do we hire someone to come in like we had previously?
If that's the case, then. Well, I would suggest you get WRC to come, you can. The danger there is to have. WRC opinions and norms and whatever else wrapped into our town plan that we really didn't intend it.
Mhm.
But, I don't think if, for instance, Matthew would want to do this, I don't think he'll do that to us. There have been staff members in the past that, were a little bit, hard to take. And thought their opinion was golden.
But as we get moving along, I'm just documenting the information. And being able to present it in draft form, all that.
So it's important that whomever does this makes the entire narrative of the town plan read like it came from one pen and not separate committees or whatever. It unifies it together, so it speaks clearly with one voice.
Mhm. I think we talked one time about having someone from UVM, student. Perhaps.
Huh?
A student from UVM, maybe to hire,
I don't know, why are you thinking about that?
to help us scribe the,
Why does that have to be a student from UVM?
I'm just suggesting that maybe that's one option.
I'm not being funny, I'm just wondering, if I had a good student from the community college or the adjunct teacher, teaches English or something, you know?
Mm,
But, I think the first instance is to start off with that. You know, we can look at the mess we had at the end in terms of pulling together as a understandable knowledge. Earlier on, I think it's start to gather the data, and that's the way you can help us. In the meantime, we can go ahead. We were talking about doing it tonight, and I don't suggest we do it, but we're gonna start going through those chapters and what I would suggest is for the agenda for next month, we put it on there, and we have time, you know, 2 people show up. Their concerns and questions are answered in 10 minutes, and we've got ourselves time to go ahead. I think we need to be ready for them. So, we've got a 100-page document to review, bring up to date.
I did set up an email account, so when we're ready to do this, we can project it on a screen and I'll do it in one, so.
Exactly.
That's all set for when we get there.
So why not have our agenda next month to include looking at the introduction to chapter 1? Okay. If we have time, we do it. If not, we put it on to the next one.
All right, any new business? Public comment? Lisa?
Yeah, I would like to make a comment, as far as I can hear you, you're talking about the town plan revision work.
Mhm.
And I would like to say that, I'm a little bit concerned that the planning commission spent a lot of time and even had a special meeting around that opposition letter, which was not required town business. The town plan revision is required town business. And so I hope that we can focus on that instead of spending a lot of time sending letters to others. It has kind of looked a little bit strange that our planning commission was very focused on that to the extent of having a special meeting. And so I'm assuming from now on, you're gonna focus on the town plan.
Okay, thank you.
I think, and just to explain the timing, I think one reason is we're trying to make sure we get it in front of the select board. That's not your main point, but just so you
Yeah, I understand that. But the select board had not asked the planning commission to do that. And the planning commission serves at the pleasure of the select board, now, of course, you are both. So, it was an activity this commission took upon itself that took a lot of time.
Well, it was pertaining to land use, and that's something that we do as a planning commission.
It was the letter writing and the special meeting about the letter that really seemed to take a lot of time. Yes, the discussion is appropriate. But it went a little bit beyond.
Okay, is that a comment or an opinion?
What's the difference? It's a comment and an opinion.
Okay. All right, thank you
Yeah.
for your comment. Any other public comments?
Somebody left up there.
No, we're,
All right, next meeting is July 14th. Motion to adjourn,
motion to adjourn.
Buzz, Derek. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Hi, guys.
Good night.